Hey guys, it's Darius here from Justice League Swag, back with another deck profile. This time we're doing Caardians Hero World. Pretty much we're gonna start off with the buddy. The buddy is Caardian Mo Armor. You want Mo Armor as your buddy because if you buddy call or buddy transform into it, you gain 2 life. So 1 off his skill, 1 off a buddy gift. And also if you're transformed into it, you can reduce damage by 3 by dropping the Caardian or the belt from your hand. So you get good defenses at 6k defense, you get the reduced damage, and you gain 2 life if you buddy transform into it. And you can start setting up with Mo Lethal with his discard ability. So overall, you want this as your buddy because you get so many pluses off of it. Now I'm going to start with the size 0 lineup. Only run 2 size 0s, and the size 0 is Dash. Dash is really good because you have a counter ability. So you can either counter from your hand on the field and put it into the soul and give an item that you have a Penetrate and Soul Guard. So Caardians doesn't have Soul Guard, so it actually really helps Caardians because we can protect our transform just in case somebody try to blow it up. And you can bait your opponent. So if your opponent has a move and they decide to move, you can bait by paying a life, putting it into the soul, and then now you can penetrate. So you're doing extra damage and you baiting your opponent because now most of them can't cast like spells if they have like center spells like Dragon World. It can really work against Dragon World. So Dash is a good tech for the deck. Now we're going to size 1 lineups. Starting off with Rescue Dragon, Project Gunner. The reason why you run him is because he's your gauger. So in case you don't hit hyper energy, you can run him whenever you transform. You drop him from your hand and you gauge 2. And you can do it multiple times so long as you drop that card. So keep dropping, keep dropping, keep dropping, keep dropping. You gauge 2 and you can ultimately gauge 8 if you have 4 in your hand. And you can call it to the field and it can attack your opponent with 2 crits. So it's good on the field or in the hand. So very good tech in the deck. Other size ones. We're running 2 Metamorph effect. Pretty much you can get the skill off by calling it. You pay 1 gauge. Hopefully that gauge is a Caardian, so you can even set up even more for your ultimate Mo Lethal or Overheat. But you can grab a Caardian. Ideally, you want a Caardian from your. You can grab any monster, but ideally you go for a Caardian. Put the Caardian to the drop, and then you can gain that Caardian's name. But you really want it so you can put a Caardian to the drop, set up multiple stuff that the deck needs. You can run it at 3 if you want to see it even more consistently. But I think 2 is a good consistent rate to run it because you don't want to overutilize and you don't want to keep running into it when you want to get like an overheat or a hyper energy. You don't want to keep running into it. So I think 2 is a good number to run it at. Okay. Lastly is we're running 2 Mock Bravers. Really, Mock Brave is good is because you can counter it, call it to the center, and you can protect yourself, especially if you running the reducer that drops the card and then gauge a card and then reduce the next damage to 0. So it's good if you want to bait your opponent into attacking you so you can call it and then protect yourself, or you can call it to the field, get a poke in, and then it has moves. So a good defensive card. 2 Mock Bravers. You can run more, but ideally with all the shields that you're running in the deck, 2 is fine. Now we're going to size 2s. Starting off, 2 Gear Drakes. Gear Drake is such a good card in Caardians because it gives our items, so ideally Mo Lethal or Mode Speed, you give it a plus a crit and can't be destroyed by card effects. Even though Mo Lethal can't be destroyed by card effects anyway, it gives it that extra crit. So 4 damage twice at your opponent is really scary and really deadly. Plus it has Soul Guard and move. So if you want to play defensively, you can call that to the field, move it to the center when your opponent attacks, let it die once, and then you can pay the reducer, kill it off yourself, gain a gauge, and then next damage is reduced to 0, and your opponent attack whiffs. So such a good card when you want to play defensively if you're trying to keep yourself alive so you can set up for next turn Mo Lethal or Overheat or anything like that. Next size 2. We're running 2 Justice Drums, Rescue Dragon Justice Drums. Ideally, it's a tech, but it can be a really good tech against something like the Star Dragon World Jack, where so long as you transform, you pay 1 gauge, call this unit, and every time it destroys a monster, so long as you transform, it restands. So you can keep getting attacks off with it if you want to drop your opponent's monster's soul. If you want to, in case they have a monster that has a move, you can keep attacking it, and then you can leave the center wide open for Mo Lethal to do what it does best, and that kill your opponent. Again, you're running 4 your buddy because It's your buddy, and you gain life every time you call your buddy transform into it. As I explained before, 4 of them. It's your buddy. It's ideal, and if you want to gain that life back that you lose, you keep calling it multiple times. You also will get Caardians in the drop. Even though it's not different ones, you still gain the life. So that's 4 life potentially. You can gain 5 life if you buddy transform. Other 2s, we're running 3 protection dealer of steel Caardian. Reason I run it at 3 instead of 4 is because I used to see him like too often now. I guess with card doc, I guess is better now, but I like 3 because you don't get too oversaturated with its ability, and because it's a high cost, even though you get to put a Caardian into the drop. Ideally, you don't want to see them too much, and you only want to use it unless you transform. If you have to call it to the field, that's kind of like an ideal situation. So run it at 3. If you have to transform into it just to get some early destruction going, running that you can, but just running at 3, I suggest, is the best number to run it at. Next, we're running 4 mode speeds. Why? Because mode speed is a mover when it's on the field, and it's a double tackle when you transform. 6, 2, 4. So if you want to get quick double tacking off before you go into mode lethal, you can, because it's a really good transform. You have to have at least 1 Caardian in a drop in order to transform into it or call it. But once you call it, it's a free call, which is really good. Surprisingly, it's a free call mover. It can set up for the reducer. It can set up just give you extra defense, and you'll be surprised what decks can barely hit 4. Some can really hit 4, but you running the decks that can't hit 4, and they running like size 1s or 0s that they try to poke you with. Now they have to link attack just to even get through your monster. So awesome tech. Size 3s. We're going to 4 mode lethals. This is your heavy hitter. This is the guy that you want to get into. You have to have 3 Caardians in the drop. Ideally, if you set up everything correctly, you can get 3 Caardians in the drop first turn, and then you can go first turn mode lethal, which would be the ideal situation ultimately, because he's a 6k defense, 11k attack, and 3k crit. So 3 crits. So if you can go in a 1 turn mode, first turn mode lethal, you set yourself up for a great game early on. So 4 mode lethals. Also, if you get 2 on the field, so you can get 1 transform, 1 on the field, you can get 4 attacks off, 12 damage on board, scary to your opponent if they have no shields, or at least 1. Because even if they guard 1 attack or 2 attacks, they still taking up to 6 damage, which is really good. So now we're going to the spells. Starting off, we're running 4. I've seen through your moves. What more can you say? It's a nullifier. You don't have to be transformed and activated. It's just counter, nullify the attack, straightforward. We're running 3, defeat me in my place. The reason why I'm running 3 is because I run movers in the deck. I run ample amount of movers in the deck. So running 3 is good because you don't want to keep seeing it too much, and then you don't have any on the field, and any monsters destroying the field. That's one problem I used to run into. I used to get them, and then my hand would brick or something like that, and then I can't use it, so it would just be sitting in my hand. So ideally, you want to run 3, defeat me in my places, just because when you get it, it's a good tech. It helps defend you more. And literally one match, I was like sitting at 7 for the longest time because my opponent just could not hit me between the movers and this card. My opponent could not hit me. Next, in spells, running 2 call super machines. The reason why you're running 2 is because you can only search out 6 cards in the deck, which is 2 Gear Drakes and then 4 Hyper Energy. So you can search either one out. Especially you want this for Hyper Energy. Gear Drake, situational if you want to search for it, but ideally you want to search for Hyper Energies just so you can get the gauge, get off the transformations that you want with the belt. 2 call super machines. Next, we're running 3 maintenance machine card docks. Card Dock is a really good card that they gave us. I prefer the belt, but Card Dock is actually a really good card because it allows us to get early hand advantage. It allows us to put Caardians to the drop, and it gives our transform plus 1,000 power and defense. So that 6k mode armor that you're into now becomes a 7k defense mode armor that your opponents really will struggle to get. And then plus with the reduced damage, you got early defense that you want. And then when you go in late game, if you want to go big or go home with mode lethal, now he has 12k attack, 3 crit, and 7k defense. So again, It helps with the drawing because you pay a gauge. Hopefully that gauge is a Caardian. You drop a Caardian from your hand, so that's 2 potential Caardians you can put into the drop in 1 turn. So it really sets up first turn mode lethal. So I highly recommend that you run at 3-4. If you're running at 4, you can probably see it too many times, which I thought was a problem. So that's why I reduced it to 3. Next, you're running 4 hyper energies. What can you say more about hyper energies? It's the gauger in the deck. It's how you get your transformations off, and it's pretty much the one of the main staples in the deck. 4 hyper energy. Make sure you have 4. Some people run 3. Some people will run 2. I suggest you run 4 because just in case you can't get the project gunner, you have your hyper energy and vice versa. Now we're going to the items. Oh, well, no, 4 more spells. Belt Searcher. You're a superhero from now on. I mean, straightforward. You search for the belt. If you can't draw the belt itself, you search for the belt. Ideally, if you want to use the belt to like either reduce damage with more armor, or you want to drop it to destroy something with protection deity, if you have this in your hand, you can drop that 1 belt that you already had and then search it out again. So that way, next turn, you'll always have a belt. Next, we run the items. 4 belts. The deck does not work unless you have the belt. So if you brick and you don't see the belt, good luck. You need 4 belts. Don't run any less. You can't run any more because that'll be illegal. So run 4, only 4. It's really good. It allows you. Now we're going to impact spell and monsters. So first with the impact monsters, running 2 Wind Demon eras. Really good because you can put Caardians in the drop and you get to draw 2. So it kind of works coincidentally with the set spell. So you use the set spell, draw 2. If you don't get what you need, free final call, free final impact call. Call that, drop 2 cards that you don't necessarily need. It doesn't even have to be Caardians, but ideally you want it to be Caardians if you have a oversaturated hand of maybe mold lethals or mold armors or anything in that nature. And then you draw 2 cards, so you can potentially draw into the impact, draw into some shields, draw into hyper energy if you need it for next turn to set up. So great impact monster to run. I used to run Mass Vantage, but Mass Vantage is good, but this one is better because it doesn't cost any gauge to call. And then finally, impact overheat deals 3 damage initially by paying 2 gauge, and then deals 5 damage if you have 3 Caardians in the drop. 5 damage to your opponent after doing all the more lethal attacks, after doing Drake. If you have Drake on the field, you still get pay 3 gauge and then deal 5 damage. So ideally, when your opponent think it's over, it's really not over. And then at the end of the match, you can dab on your opponent. So, and then if you want to build a sideboard, the sideboard I have is the extra card dock. So if you want to run it at 4, you can. The extra defeat me in my place. If you want to run that at 4, you can. But I think the number that I gave you at 3 is really consistent. I'm running 3 arduous training. Give the item that you're transforming a rod into plus 5,000 and penetrate. So ideally, depending on your matchup, if you're running like Star Dragon, Road Jack, anything that has move and a lot of soul like a Thor, even though you don't get the penetrate, you still can get through. And then so if you want to use it like save you so happen to have to go into more armor, give more armor plus 5 to become an AK attacker, and then it can get through a Thor or any other big defense type soul monster. Running 2, I won't die from just that. Essentially, if you kill off your own card with the defeat me in my place, you can cast this, and pretty much when the monster leaves your field, or if your opponent destroys the monster, you can pay 1 gauge and destroy a monster on the field. So, I mean, ideally, it's just a tech. If you have to run it in that situation, it sets up. It helped me win a couple matches, actually. So, and then finally, you want to run Hero Climax. So, when you destroy 2 or more monsters, you cast Hero Climax, you gain 2 life, and stand a card that you are... stand an item on your field. So, I mean, think about it like this. You have to get through a big defense with mold lethal. You attack, and then your opponent thinks, oh, well, it's over. Nope. You cast Hero Climax, restand Mo Lethal, you gain 2 life, and then Mo Lethal coming at them again. So just in case they think they're survive, no, you're still hitting them with another Mo Lethal attack. 3 crit, and then you can still set up for overheat in that same turn. And that is my deck profile. Please like and subscribe and comment for more videos to come. Thank you.